public contract with NBC,
NBC's
but I don't know what that is. No, I don't know. They didn't even bring it up. I'll ask them.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Almost through the week. That is nice. We've started a new month.
Yes.
September.
That's the good news. The bad news, it's September, and Dr. Tai Houser is back in the classroom.
I am corrupting our youth.
Good job.
And half of the country is underwater.
That's right.
And the other half is on fire.
Yes, on
So
fire.
it's an interesting
Yes.
September, right?
And exactly. Paul is with us tonight from Miami Beach Pride. Very excited about Pride getting ready to happen. And Gregg Shapiro here with us.
Howdy do.
We have lots of news to talk about tonight.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. It's going to be fun.
Even sports ball.
Big news. Lots of sports. Well, welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It is 8 p.m. Thursday, September 2nd, 2021, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. Don't hear...
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens, you're gonna see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the Happening Out Television Network, Hotspots Magazine, and WMEG Events. Hotspots is celebrating 35 years of the LGBTQ+ experience. Merged, we bring you the best of LGBTQ+ news, entertainment, and support of our community.
Well, this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet. I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and let's welcome anchor Paul Thomas. He is currently the chairman of the LGBTQ Advisory Committee to the City of Miami Beach, a board member of Miami Beach Pride, a board of trustee member of the Point Foundation, and on the endorsement committee for SAVE. He has over 30 years of experience in the healthcare and education fields, specializing in AIDS, HIV treatments, as well as an activist, advocate for marginalized communities locally. He works with many of our nonprofit and FQHCs, providing a wide range of services. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening. And let's welcome anchor Dr. Tai Houser. He is an associate professor of English and Humanities at Broward College. Additionally, he teaches for extended periods of time at international colleges in China, India, Spain, and Bolivia. Good evening, Tai.
Good evening, Paul. Thanks. And I just want to take a second to give a shout out to my boy, Larry Wilson, who's celebrating his birthday this weekend at an undisclosed location. Let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro, a renowned LGBTQ+ writer. Gregg is the author of 7 books, including the 2021 expanded edition of his short story collection, How to Whistle. An entertainment journalist, Shapiro's celebrity interviews and reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites, and his screensaver movie reviews can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, Gregg.
Good evening, y'all. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. And this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Thursday, September 2nd.
Well, we begin by queering up the USA. Nearly 20% of LGBT renters owe back rent, with half of those in fear of eviction. Just as the U.S. Supreme Court dismantles a national eviction moratorium, many LGBT renters report being in dire straits, according to a new study from the Williams Institute at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA's School of Law. The Williams Institute reports an estimated 19% of LGBT people who rent their homes are not caught up on rent. Nearly half, 47% of queers who owe rent say they fear eviction within the next 2 months. LGBT people of color are most affected by rent woes. They are more likely to be renters and not homeowners, and more likely to be behind on rent compared to all other groups. Housing instability has been markedly worsened by COVID-19. The pandemic has hampered the economy, especially in the service industry sector, where many LGBT people work.
What's interesting to me is that these numbers actually reflect the larger mainstream numbers. I mean, it's not surprising, but it's upsetting at the same time. And we see certainly here in South Florida, rents are outrageously expensive. And if your job doesn't get you into the six figures, you probably can't afford your rent anyway.
Yeah, I mean, mentioning South Florida, when you think about, I live in South Beach. When you think about Miami-Dade County, is 70% Latino and like 13% African American. So that we're talking about 83% of the people, right? When you said it affects disproportionately people of color, that's a lot of people, right? Who are not only jobless, but scared about being homeless. And it's hard to get yourself back out of that hole when you're like in fear every day. Am I going to have a home,
And this is just another epidemic on top of the pandemic. It's just another reason to be living in fear. I mean, it's a terrifying time.
It's the illustration of bubbling to the surface what was always existing there. Housing insecurity has always been sitting there for the LGBTQ community because so many in LGBT work in service-related industries, which are lower wage industries. So that directly affects you in terms of housing insecurity problems. The really important thing, I think, in the Williams Institute's new study is a very significant number, half of all of the people that are reporting housing insecurity in our community fear eviction in the next 2 months. So over the course of September and October, as we roll to November 1st in that rent payment due, we are going to see dramatic and significant effects on our community. And that means we must find solutions that work. We can't sweep this under the table. We can't just report it here at Queer News Tonight and say, okay, we've done it, we've reported it. We have to figure out solutions, starting in our own community to support our community, and then reaching out with nonprofit organizations and governmental organizations to try to help find a way to solve this problem, or at least at the minimum, provide emergency stopgap for November 1st.
Yeah, the government has the money, by the way. There's a lot of COVID money that hasn't been spent, a lot of renter money that was never spent. They can help, now's the time to help.
Okay. Well, we're up to you now, Paul.
Oh, and now we should queer up gay culture and pay attention. Right? Photographer Bruce Weber settles sexual assault suit with male models. Famed fashion photographer Bruce Weber has settled a lawsuit against him that had been brought by a group of models who had accused him of sexual assault. Page 6 reported, Weber is known for his erotic ad campaigns for Abercrombie & Fitch and Calvin Klein. When the news broke that models had come out alleging Weber of abuse, Condé Nast Global Chief Content Officer and Vogue Editor-in-Chief Anna Wintour suspended working with Weber and photographer Mario Testino, who also faces similar accusations to Weber. The models, Josh Ardloff, Anthony Baldwin, Jacob Madden, and Jana Van Oygen, and I apologize if I didn't correct that pronouncedly, accused the 75-year-old Weber of groping them during photo shoots while saying he was simply helping them or leading them through breathing exercises.
This just smacks of homophobia. Because I keep thinking, what if it was a a woman photographer? Would they have had the same objection to being posed or something? I mean, it just seems, I don't know, it just...
I want to make sure I understand. So you think that the models are suggesting this in an inappropriate way because the models are homophobic?
I think that's what that's what it sounds like to me.
From someone who was formerly in the business in the 80s, in my younger years, that it's almost, that didn't really sound like anything. You know what I mean? When you're doing a shoot, it's kind of open. Their complaints aren't for actual sex. They're like groping. I mean, when you model,
So
you're standing there with no clothes on,
I'm
and they're
just-
putting clothes on you.
Just making sure you're also suggesting that you think the
It's not-
models are being homophobic.
It sounds very strange to me. It doesn't sound like anything real happened, you know, harmful.
So I understand what you're saying, and I wish that there was more detail about the nature of these allegations.
I'm sure more is coming.
And I'm sure it is too. But I think the point that we need to take away from this is that whenever you're engaged with other people, the goal is to be as respectful as possible to their person, to their bodies, to how you deal with them. And if that means that you have to ask permission to adjust your bulge for this shot, then you have to ask permission. But I mean, that's kind of one of those things that there is a fine line. And
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's interesting to me. I'm going to follow this story much closer now than I was going to follow because both of your observations surprised me. I did not consider that this may be a homophobic response by male models. We'll find out. We'll hear it. There's a charge of groping, which means there's touching involved, clearly. And a 75-year-old professional, as this photographer is a professional. So he knows what is right and what is wrong in terms of the touch.
Of course.
So that's going to be interesting, and I'm going to follow it closer now because of it. One thing that I do think is super interesting is Anna Wintour getting involved in this for Condé Nast, because as you know, that is the devil from the devil.
that's right.
And you don't want to piss Anna off
Right.
in any stretch.
True.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's queer up gay culture. Chicago Pride Parade canceled for a second straight year due to COVID-19. COVID-19 has claimed Chicago's Pride Parade yet again. Organizers on Wednesday announced the Boys Town celebration has been canceled for a second straight year as the city weathers its latest coronavirus surge. The parade, which regularly drew upwards of 100,000 people along its colorful North Side route in pre-pandemic years, had initially been pushed back from its usual last weekend of June to October 3rd, in the hopes of getting more people involved and vaccinated for a safer gathering. But with the Delta variant raking the nation, parade coordinator Tim Fry said, quote, "We were very naive in that belief," end quote.
Well, as someone who has been on a float in that parade for about 15 years, I was in a
Chicago
float,
Pride.
the Chicago Pride Parade. It's a lot of people. 100,000 sounds like a low estimate, actually. And you know, the one thing is with October, it might actually lessen the number of attendees anyway, because it could be snowing in October in Chicago.
There could be 12 inches of snow on the ground.
But there's a lot of drinking, and it's a lot of crowds pushed together. So I think it's probably a really smart decision that they canceled it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It could be, well, and it could be, again, going with the weather issue, it could be that there would be more inside events, which are harder to kind of manage.
It sounds like weather probably, right? Because they just had that big event in Chicago.
Yeah, market days.
But it was in August.
Yeah.
Right.
And the
it
weather in
was-
August is way different than the...
That's what I mean,
Right.
right? So Chicago didn't have a problem having an event.
Right. Well, what do you think of Chicago blaming the cancellation of the Chicago Pride Parade on COVID then? I mean,
Right.
why did
Yeah.
they do that?
Right.
Why didn't
Exactly.
they say, oh, we're worried about 12 inches of snow?
Right.
So therefore,
Right.
we made
The
a
first
bad
time
decision.
Boys Town's
Yeah.
ever been worried about 12 inches.
You've been waiting all day. You know, I have to tell you, and I know this is likely going to be unpopular, but I completely disagree with this decision. Because first off, we've got to stop surrendering.
No.
We're either going to move forward or we're not going to move forward. We're either going to get back out in the world and say, we have a path of success, and that is vaccination. And those of you who do not get vaccinated, you are living in our world at your own risk. But we're not going to be held down by you anymore.
Right.
Now, I know that's not popular. I hear and I understand.
I agree with you.
But we're in a situation where there is 0.02% of me dying from COVID. I guarantee you, Queer News Tonight is going to play back this moment if I die of COVID. I guarantee you. But I'm pretty comfortable in my odds,
Right.
you know, and lightning striking me and walking out into a street by a car. We must stop managing our decisions based on a lightning strike hitting and killing me.
While I agree with you, Al, these are difficult decisions, and we don't actually know what the conversation was that led them to this.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
You know, pre-vaccinations being available, it was a different story, right?
Of course.
But there's an obvious, free, working solution, right? And I feel bad for the organizers that they even had to have this conversation. You can get your vaccine,
Yes.
and you can go on with your life. No one's telling you not to, right?
And there's better choices than cancellation. The choice is mandate a vaccine. Mandate you can't enter the room of the inside event that you're having
Right.
without a mask, and the mask can't be taken off. But the cancellation of the event across
Right.
the board, I think, is pejorative, and it is a surrender to the. And I know, again, unpopular, but to a sizable percentage of the crazy living on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, 30%, that are vaccinated, and 70% refuse because their dog barked 3 times, and that means the vaccine is too dangerous for
Right.
them.
so,
Right.
but by insisting on proving vaccination, you're now politicizing it. I mean, think about if it was in Broward County. If you were to insist on proving vaccination, you would be fined $5,000.
Right, but you know, in order to walk into a bar, you have to prove that you're old enough to be there, right?
Right.
So it's not like you don't have to show
not the
proof
first
to
time.
enter establishments
Right.
for legal reasons.
Right.
This is a global health pandemic. I don't think it's a stretch to ask for proof of vaccination along with your license that you're old
Exactly
enough to drink.
And God forbid, I'm going to piss off a whole other core of people. But those people that are in cancellation culture, I'm placing in the same category as Governor DeSantis, who is requiring there can be no vaccination mandates and no mask mandates. One argument and justification does not justify the other.
Right.
We must be able to move on, and we know the means to move on.
Right.
Get vaccinated. And those that choose not to vaccinate
Right.
cannot hold us back any
Right.
longer,
Agreed.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Next,
No, I've pissed everybody off.
You pissed me off way before that.
next week, Queer Up Gay Culture. Carl Nassib becomes first out player signed to NFL regular season roster. Out.com is reporting that Carl Nassib still has a job. The 6-year NFL veteran earned a spot on the finalized roster of the Las Vegas Raiders on Tuesday, making him the first out player signed to an NFL team's regular season roster. He is expected to make history again in week 1 of the season as the first out player to play in a regular season game, and he will do so under the bright lights of the league's marquee game of the week, Monday Night Football, on September 13th. Nassib made NFL and professional sports history when he announced he was gay on Instagram in June. He used the occasion to announce a donation of $100,000 to the Trevor Project, the support group for LGBTQ+ youth struggling with their sexual identities and considering death by suicide. this news might even get me to watch sports ball. Yay, sports ball. But probably not.
You know, Monday night they play football. It's not just Sunday night anymore. Did you know that?
I know that Monday comes after Sunday, but I
Monday is
didn't
the day of
realize.
the week.
Okay.
I'm actually really excited about this story. I have friends who are NFL players and other athletes who came out after, and specifically with the NFL, Estra Tualo, who will be at Miami Beach Pride, is a very good friend of mine. He has
Very
Super
nice.
Bowl rings. And so we've had many conversations about that whole process and what it felt like to be in the closet and playing and what might happen
Awesome.
to a career. And so I'm excited
Make
that
sure you
somebody...
introduce me. I would love to meet him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does
He's
he
a
live in
fantastic...
South Florida?
He lives in the Midwest, and he's opening a restaurant in P-Town right now. So he's been in P-Town for a bunch of months.
You know, it's
but he'll be
interesting
down.
because when he is here, perhaps, I don't know if there's any LGBTQ media in South Florida, but perhaps they would want to organize an interview with him while
I'll
he's here.
talk to him about that. So it's nice to see a player who came out ahead of time and is being recognized and accepted by the league. It's long past time.
Yeah, this is great. And I just have to say it again. I said it the last time we did this story when he came out. He's a Penn Stater.
Yeah.
So go Penn State.
Well, you can't have everything. Right, exactly. You crushed my dreams in the 90s with Doug Flutie. You know, I just want to provide an exclamation point of why I think this story is so important. And you prove it to me. You're friends with somebody that had to play football, wins a Super Bowl ring or rings, and never was able to live his truth.
Right.
The importance of this story is Nasib becomes the first to say, wait, I'm out.
Right.
And how many NFL football players are likely gay?
Right.
And he becomes the first to go, see, it's not as bad as you think. And just like Glenda, the Good Witch of the North, come out wherever you are. That's what we need in the NFL and all of our sports leagues. And that's when we're going to get real recognition.
Absolutely.
So that's why this story is really so big.
Absolutely.
Well, next let's queer up gay culture. 20 states, a little sadder news, 20 states sue over the Biden administration's LGBTQ rights guidelines. Well, 20 states' attorneys general have sued President Joe Biden's administration over its guidelines for employers and schools on equal treatment of LGBTQ plus people. These AGs, led by, of course, guess who? Tennessee's Herbert Slattery, claim the federal government is interfering in matters that should be handled by the states, and they object particularly to guidance related and relating to transgender employees and students, such as access to restrooms and school sports teams, comporting with their gender identity, use of their preferred pronouns, and enforcement of sex-specific dress codes. The states that joined Tennessee in the suit are, and here's the who's who, Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, and West Virginia. This exact same group of 20 states, again led by Slattery and Tennessee, sent a letter to the Biden administration in July objecting to the entire guidance.
So what they're doing here is they're claiming states' rights, the same way they did when they wanted to keep slavery.
Yes.
If these states don't have someone to hate, they don't have anything going for them.
Absolutely. You know, we're called the United States of America, and some things should be united through all 50 states. Meaning you should have rights in all 50 states. It shouldn't depend on when you cross a state border, all of a sudden you don't have rights anymore and you're still in America. This is not acceptable.
Yeah.
Well, and the never-ending bathroom battle. It's just,
No,
it doesn't seem like it's ever going to stop, and it just always comes back to that over and over again.
And by the way, in terms of states' rights and your observation that you just made. This week, one of the most important bathroom battles for trans community in American history was the suit 5 years ago that was filed in Virginia. And the conclusion of the bathroom trans rights issues of which bathroom you can use, the state Supreme Court ruled that trans rights reigned supreme and paid the defendant $1.3 million in their legal fees. That's a states' rights issue. So let's watch you, especially Slattery in Tennessee, talk out of both sides of your mouth.
Could you guys have guessed those states with your eyes closed? If
wait.
you didn't show
Absolutely.
I could have got like 10 out of 14.
Right, and it has to do with below the Mason.
Right.
You know the one surprise on that list? You know who's not on it?
Florida. Yeah.
Wait, what happened?
I know.
To,
That's
the
true.
gang of 20. Yeah, I don't quite know.
Florida can't read the memo.
Yeah, that's a good joke. All right. Well, that's our queer headlines for today. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ plus news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has reported on coronavirus every news broadcast since January 6, 2020. Tonight we report that as of today, more than 2,824,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
Queer News Tonight remembers the more than 46,000 LGBTQ plus Americans that have died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 371 million vaccination doses have been administered in the U.S.
That is our pandemic news for tonight. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
Hi everybody, my name is Eddie Marti Kring and I'm your field and community organizer for SAVE, Safeguarding American Values for Everyone, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, we finished tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News. In LGBTQ plus Flash News, here's everything that we know about the Queer as Folk reboot. Streaming service Peacock has ordered a reboot of Queer as Folk straight to series, and it's currently in its pre-production stages. The series has been described as a, quote, vibrant reimagining of the groundbreaking British series created by Russell T. Davies, exploring a diverse group of friends in New Orleans whose lives are transformed in the aftermath of the tragedy, end quote. Stephen Dunn, the mind behind The Closet Monster, will direct the project.
LGBTQ plus, oh my goodness. I'm like,
Did you have anything to say about that last story though?
You know, my mind is still on the last story.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I just hope it is a serious reimagining because I'm sick of recycling all these old things. I mean, I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure it'll be fine, but let's stop recycling.
Well, and it's set in New Orleans, so let's hope they actually film it in New Orleans because they could use the money because the original Pittsburgh set season was filmed in Toronto.
Yes, that's true. Both of you get it wrong. It doesn't need to be filmed in New Orleans, and the reboot is completely fine because they'll incorporate the original theme from the original show, which was 9-Inch Nights. And by the way, that was Thursdays. Oh, wait, is this Thursday?
LGBTQ plus flash news. Former Fox analyst blast channel's new batch of pundits as freaks. Watch this.
The green room over the last several years into the Trump administration, when I left, the guests got more and more bizarre, more distasteful. The green room started to be like the bar scene in the first Star Wars film. And these people are freaks. And then you realize you're one of the freaks.
What do you mean by freaks?
People with no qualifications, who could not even speak cogently, who could only speak the lines they'd memorized, praising Trump as though he were a heathen god that had to be appeased with slavish rhetoric.
A former military officer and Fox News personality was among the many right-wing figures to dish on how Fox News has used bigotry, including anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, to fuel Donald Trump's influence and his big lie election conspiracy theory in a new docuseries. Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, retired, who served as a military analyst for the network until publicly quitting in 2018, explained what it was like working with anti-LGBTQ personalities who learned how to enable the, quote, freaks in the Trump administration.
So I just want to hope that Ryan Murphy's paying attention, because this could be a great American horror story.
And that's freaks with an X.
With an X, right? You know, I'm never, ever going to watch Sean Hannity ever again without thinking about the barroom scene in Star Wars that starred Jabba the Hutt.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I give him props for saying it on TV and calling it like it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. LGBTQ plus flash news. Miami Beach Pride wrestles with COVID as event approaches. From our partners at South Florida Gay News, no masks or vaccines, no pride. That's the message delivered by the Miami Beach Pride Committee weeks before its first COVID-era festival and parade, when tens of thousands of LGBTQ people could show up to celebrate along Ocean Drive. Pride Committee Chair Bruce Horwich said, quote, "We need to remind them, we need to encourage them. All of our staff and volunteers will be vaccinated or they will be masked completely for anything they do inside or outside," end quote. This year's festival, from September 10th through the 19th, is the first held in person since the start of the pandemic in early 2020. Miami Beach Pride usually is held in April. The first festival in 2009 attracted more than 15,000 spectators. An estimated 140,000 attended the most recent in-person festival in 2019. Get the complete story in this week's South Florida Gay News on Stands Today.
Vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate.
Yeah.
I repeat myself, vaccinate.
Yeah, absolutely. I see some double standards, and again, at the risk of pissing some people off. This is Labor Day weekend. Our beaches, in Miami Beach, South Beach, and Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, are going to be jammed. Mm-hmm. We're not going to talk about that. What is the difference in the decision here at Miami Beach Pride? Bravo to say you must be vaccinated or masked.
Mm-hmm. Yes, be vaccinated and come and dance and enjoy your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I'll be in Fort Lauderdale that weekend.
You will not. That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring my bell and share this news with your friends and family.
Is that what your teleprompter said?
Yeah.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends. Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm Al Ferguson, your anchor, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Paul Thomas, Dr. Tai Houser, and Gregg Shapiro. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ